Do you struggle with being funny or adding humor to your presentations and even interactions? Recently, I asked my friends and Facebook, I put this post out there and asked people if they thought I was funny. And it was interesting because I got more messages in my DMs than I did to the post. And I think people were trying to be like soft about it. They're like, well, Nate, you're not really funny publicly, but you're funny like you're really funny when you're in like, our circles or our groups and stuff like that. You're really funny one-on-one. But you're really inspiring. That's what I heard like multiple times. You're always like Mr. Sunshine. You're really inspiring. You bring hope. So the conversation quickly went from you're kind of funny and then you're really inspiring and you're an opportunist. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. Now personally, I think I'm not that funny. I do love stand-up comedy. However, I don't think I'm that funny. But the good thing with being funny, it's a skill. Even comedians, they have to keep practicing over and over and over again. They write a joke. If it lands and it hits well, gets a good response, they stick with it. If the one joke doesn't do so well, they have to rewrite it. And it's a process. And that goes a lot for you being a coach. When you're getting your message out there, you might find like your videos, your podcasts, or your presentations, your webinars are not hitting so well. So you have to keep reiterating and retrying until you get one that lands, until you one that hits and gets a conversion. And so this is very true. Back in the day when I was, traveling the road over 200 days a year in hotels, three times a week, it was like 9 presentations a week. It was a bunch. We always cared about 2 things: butts in seats and conversion. It was a main priority. It was like, okay, if we had this many people show up face to face in a live conference or a seminar, and then how many people purchased, how many people upgraded, and so on and so forth. So that's like an offline marketing conversion rate. Then you have webinars, right? Then you have, back in the day, it was teleseminars, right? It was everything by phone. And then now you have webinars, and then now you have lives, right? So even though the medium has changed, the underlying principles of conversion and also engagement is still the same, right? It's still important to, one, increase engagement and keep people engaged into your content, which I'm not that great at. So if you're still here, then hey, kudos to you. Maybe this is helping you out in some way, but I'm telling you, it's a learned skill. I've seen people who are really great at it, really fantastic about keeping people engaged in them, and other people are not. They struggle with it. And one of the things that's really important along the way during that process is adding humor. If you can add humor into your context, into whether it's a script, presentation, webinar, whatever it is, if you add humor, you can definitely keep people more engaged. Now, of course, there's some things you have to stay away from. What do they call it? Romance, politics, and religion. You have to like be mindful of those things when you're giving presentations, but you also want it to land so that everybody can kind of find some truth in that humor, and it makes it more relatable. So that's really hard to do for a lot of people. So what I ended up doing was I took this information, this research that I have, and I asked a few buddies of mine in the industry. And one of my buddies is a growth hacker. And I said, hey, do you typically find this is an issue for a lot of people? And we started asking around, and the consensus and the results were the same, that people do struggle with this. By the way, if you struggle with this, also let me know. Maybe send me a DM, put a message in the comments. Because we're finding that this is a common theme, that people struggle with this. So my buddy's a growth hacker, and we decided to put our heads together and figure out how to solve this problem. Because I know when I'm working with coaches that they know they have a very skill set. They're great at something, but it's that immediate in the beginning, the connection, the reason. You'd be surprised. A lot of the reason why people are not getting more sales, more conversion, more engagement is because probably they're not that funny or they're not relatable. And that's really important. Being funny is like, adding humor is like step number 1. Then being relatable is step number 2. It actually deepens the connection into this. And a lot of guys know this when you're like, trying to meet, ask a pretty girl out, or, go connect with a girl across the room. There's steps to engagement, steps to, building trust. And it's very similar, whether you're a male or a female, you're building that trust to an audience and to get clients. So you have to follow those like rules of engagement in order to get the conversion, in order for people to buy in. And that's not easy for everyone. A lot of people think it could be, oh, I need this certain tool and I need this certain, I need email marketing and I need to be on Facebook, and I need to be on Instagram, I need to be on Snapchat, whatever it is, whatever TikTok, whatever the medium is. Sometimes you think it's mediums or tools, and it's not really the tools. It's actually what you're using and what your format is, and the framework that you're using in delivery. Okay, so that needs to be adjusted. And I'll never forget this. There was a time when I was speaking all the time and on a regular basis, and I was on the road with my buddy Dave, who actually used to be a stand-up comedian in the UK, and he was giving a presentation, and he started off with some humor. Then he took people down, told them a really, interesting story, really sad story, actually. It'd even make people cry. And then he would take them back up, and then it would make them laugh, and then it would take them back down and make it really sad again. And at the end of the presentation, I noticed this pattern, and I went up to him and said, man, that was like the best presentation you've ever done. And he's done a bunch. I used to see him all the time doing a bunch of presentations. And he said, that was like the best presentation. How did you do that? How did you make people cry? Even grown men were crying. I was like, how did you make these grown men cry? And he said, it's the roller coaster, baby. He said, it's the roller coaster, baby. You got to take people up. You got to take them down. You got to take them up. And he said it so like nonchalant, like it was a no-brainer for him. It came so natural for him. He's like, I was like, well, yeah, but where did you learn that? And he's like, well, it's a skill. And I used to be a comedian in the UK. And again, like I said, it's something that comics typically learn over the years by trial and error. Now, I'm not saying for you to go become a stand-up comedian and go enroll in a how to be more funny class. You don't need to do all that. All you need to do is follow some simple frameworks and add humor into your marketing to get this roller coaster effect. And you've probably seen it, you've experienced it, you see it in movies all the time, and it's just a way to deliver a story and engagement, and to keep people engaged into what you have, and to build trust. At the end of the day, is to build trust. And we see these patterns on a regular basis everywhere. So if you're not getting the conversions you want, if you're not making the sales you want, if you're not getting people engaged enough, you're probably missing one of those elements. So if that's you and you need help in that area, we are organizing a group specifically for people who struggle with this. So if you're a coach and you're struggling with like adding humor, and maybe you're a speaker, how do you, add some humor into, inject humor into the specific areas of your presentation? If you're struggling with that, let me know, or let me know so I can get your contact information. We'll add you to our group, and we'll organize a group or something like that. But just let me know so that I'm aware. All right, I'll see you in the next one.